Hi everyone. Tonight is September 11th, 2022, and it is the 21st anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. This video is a book review and also part 2 of my annual September 11th Memorial Book Review video. My part 1 for this Memorial Book Review video was a book review on a book called World Trade Center, The Giants That Defied the Skies, and it was a very beautiful photography book that showcased images of the World Trade Center in its former glory and also New York City after the towers collapse. This book that I'm going to be doing for this book review in particular is more of a personal book. It focuses on the heroes of 9/11 and those who assisted with the cleanup and also rescuing others. And the title of this book is Faces of Ground Zero: Portraits of the Heroes of September 11th, 2001, and it's photography by Joe McNally, who worked for Life magazine. So as I stated, today is September 11th. It's 21st anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. It's the end of the day. I worked most of the day. I worked all day. It took me a while to get home, but I made sure that I listened to the reading of the names, which is an annual memorial that occurs in New York City, where the relatives and friends of those who lost their lives on 9/11 read their names. It takes about 2 hours usually to go through all of the names because there's so many. So that's what I did today to remember September 11th. And I also finished reading this book, which was not only very powerful, but it made me have a deeper respect for heroes that we see every single day, but sometimes pay no attention to. So before I get into this book, let me tell you a little bit about the author. Now, the biography in the back of this book I feel is not up to date. So I'm going to the author's website, Joe McNally, and it's joemcnally.com. And this is what he has as his bio. Joe McNally is an internationally acclaimed, award-winning photographer whose prolific career includes assignments in nearly 70 countries. McNally is known worldwide as not only one of the top, technically excellent photographers of his generation, but his charming demeanor, confidence, and humor make him a sought-after choice from CEOs to celebrities to commercial and magazine clients alike. He is among the rare breed of photographer who has bridged the world between photojournalism and advertising, amassing an impressive commercial and advertising client list, including FedEx, Nikon, ESPN, Adidas, MAC Cosmetics, Lands' End, General Electric, Epson, MetLife, USAA, New York Stock Exchange, Lehman Brothers, PNC Bank, and the Beijing Cultural Commission. My goodness, man. Like, whoa, I'm impressed. McNally is equally comfortable climbing buildings or lighting a telescope to capturing quiet, sensitive subject matter with confidence in medical surroundings. He has shot numerous cover stories and highly complex features for the National Geographic, Life, and Sports Illustrated, where his research skills and unmatched preparedness were highly valued. McNally won the first Alfred Eisenstadt Award for Journalistic Impact for a life coverage titled The Panorama of War. He has been honored numerous times by Communication Arts, PDN Graphis, American Photo, POY, and the World Press Photo Foundation. He has also adapted to the internet-driven world. media world, where his work is regularly cited in social media surveys as sources of inspiration and industry leadership. McNally is a proud Nikon ambassador, and if you go to his website, he has very beautiful work. It's just crisp, it's clear, it has exciting angles, it's just really edgy. Like, I really, really like his work, and you should really go check it out. And you'll see that he is a very excellent photographer. He also has books that he's published, and I think I want to buy some of his photography books just to have them. I'm starting to get more into photography, so that way when I have children, I can just show them various images of historical events and just people. But anyway, so this book was published in 2002, but the photographs were taken, I believe, not too long after 9/11. It says, McNally's portraits, created in a studio only blocks from Ground Zero, were taken in the days following the attacks with a one-of-a-kind camera, 8 feet tall and 12 feet long, with a lens that was once used on a U-2 spy plane. McNally's camera forged larger-than-life Polaroid images of exceptional clarity and tone. Because the camera was so complicated and expensive to operate, most of McNally's subjects had only a single instant before the lens. They knew this was the case, and their pictures have an immediacy that is stunning. They connect emotionally with the viewer, and that is very true. You can literally see the raw emotion on these people's faces, and each person had a short quote, but even though they didn't say that many words, it was still very powerful and went along with the story. They said just enough to make you feel as if you were there. This is McNally. These are the portraits. They're basically life-size or larger than life. I wonder how many of the people in this book are still alive, because this book is 20 years old. I hope he comes out with a anniversary edition. That would be nice, just to catch up to see like the people that were there, contact them and get an update on their life. He said, as I met and worked with these people, listening to quiet descriptions of what happened to them on 9/11 and in the aftermath, it became clear to me that no matter how big a camera might have existed on the planet, no matter how huge a camera I might have dreamed of, they would have filled the lens. In the tragedy, they gave an enormous gift to all Americans, and their grace and courage reminded us about the best in mankind. So, this is the first photograph. What I really enjoyed about these photographs is like a lot of the people just came in with what they were wearing. If they were at Ground Zero, this is probably what they were wearing as they were cleaning up. So this is the first firefighter. He's from Squad 18. His name is Harry Davis. Davis, and it gives a bio before they go into the person's quote, so you know who they're talking about. Hold on, I have to plug up my computer. Anyway, it says, Davis, one of the squad's drivers, was on his way home when he heard news of the attacks on his car radio. Squad 18's rig was found crushed under rubble from Tower 1, and 7 members' bodies were found in the tower's remnants. And he said, we tried not to think about our guys when we were searching for survivors, but I still hope to see them walking around the corner any second. I don't feel lucky to be alive. I just wonder why the others had to go. It's not fair. Why them? And that's something that I've noticed in not only in reading about first person accounts of September 11th, but also like listening to people talk about it, listening to people that survived, how so many people came so close to death, and some of them don't even know why they're alive. Some of them don't even know why their loved one was taken and why they survived. They just had to move on with their life. But some couldn't move on with their life, and they're still trying to cope with it. Survivor's guilt. And as time passes by, I guess my worry is that I don't know. I can't explain it. When you experience something, you know how it feels to you. When I was listening today to the reading of the names, what I saw that was really interesting was the ones that had lived the experience, that had lost a relative that they knew while they were alive, they had more of an emotion. They had more of a connection to the event. Whereas, the children that were either small when it happened or were born after it happened, they had more composure. It was almost as distant as the Civil War. Like, we can talk about the Civil War, but not have that much of an emotional reaction unless, you're really, really deeply involved. Like, you can talk about it, you can read about it, you can even look at photographs about it, and most people will be like, oh, that's sad, but they won't feel that pain in their heart. Most people. So I think Joe McNally did a really good job to capture the pain, to capture the emotions that were going through these people. A lot of these firefighters lost a bulk of their team, a bulk of their crew, and it hurts. Like losing a relative, but instead of one, it's like 17. Some of the people in this book were not firefighters, like this lady right here. This is her. She's a volunteer. Her name is Melissa Van Wijik, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I do apologize if you're watching this. Choreographer and Red Cross volunteer, disaster services. Van Wijik, worked at aid areas that distributed food and offered showers and beds to workers. She says, the first day I was there, 20 hours. Then I took a nap and went back. That's what everybody did. It was chaotic. Everything that didn't fit into someone else's job fell to us. I wonder if somebody gave her this bear. It's a little bear. It says hero. And she's wearing her boots. Girl, you could literally be in the year 2022 and blend right in. I like your style. So, hold on. Actually, I'm going to take this off because it's getting in my way. It's the flap, the jacket flap. Isn't it beautiful? Look at all of these heroes. So, okay. This dude right here is Melvin Doby. He's a police officer, Highway 4. It says Doby went by motorcycle to the World Trade Center, arriving right after the second plane hit. Now this is him. As you can see. He says, I didn't see the second plane, so I'm standing there wondering how one plane hit both buildings. In the confusion, I didn't even know that the smoke cloud and debris were there because an entire building had fallen down. At one point, I thought I heard gunshots. Then I realized it was bodies crashing to the ground. I was watching people jumping out of the windows. Here I am, a police officer, and there was absolutely nothing I could do for those people. That hurt so much. Being there was like one big case of helplessness. That is so ironic because I was just talking about that in my other book review. Like, there's nothing you can do to save them. Even if you wanted to save them, you couldn't save them. You couldn't grow wings and fly up there. You couldn't even get a plane to get them out. It just helplessness. And then his description of the bodies crashing, that's literally what it sounded like. Just listening to one video, because I only found one video where you could actually hear the bodies crashing, and it literally just sounded like smashing, like breaking, glass breaking. It was just really horrible. Then, these two are paramedics, Kenrick Samuel and George Contreras. Paramedics, NYU Downtown Hospital. Emergency medical personnel received a priority call to the World Trade Center, where they found so many people injured that they had to set up a triage system. This is them. And that's another thing I remember in some of my readings is some of the hospitals and everything were expecting so many people, and it just kind of stopped. And that's always a bad sign. That means casualties most of the time. They said, people who had lacerations were sent off as walking wounded to find a ride to the hospital, said Samuel. The mass of casualties was horrendous. I responded to the World Trade Center bombing in '93 when 1,000 people were injured, and that was nothing compared to this. And another thing that was interesting is there were a couple of animals in this book. So the first animal that I saw was this animal, this puppy with the lady. And it says, Carrie McGinnis, Kennel Manager, Humane Society of New York. In the week after the attack, she escorted evacuees to their apartments to retrieve pets. Some said, why bother? There's more important work. But these animals are parts of families. People would call their children on cell phones to let them know the cat was safe. Many had lost neighbors and colleagues. They didn't need to lose family, too. Look at that dog. He's so happy. I can understand. I've met a couple of people that were very connected to their pets, and when something happened, I know this boy in high school, Jeff. Yeah, I don't remember his last name. But Jeff had a pet rat, and one day the pet rat died, and he spent all day crying about his pet rat, like he could not go on. But you can have that type of emotional connection with an animal. Sometimes that animal is your only friend. Sometimes that animal is the only thing of or only living being of someone that you have left. Like if I had a neighbor who had a dog, and the dog had basically the same birthday as her brother who had died. So she had this deep emotional connection to this dog. And even though the dog wasn't that well trained and would just jump over the fence, she still didn't have the heart to get rid of it because of that connection. Then right here are 3 people who are immigrants. I don't know how to pronounce their names. It says Andrzej Nowak, Larissa Prochna, and Paul Chowinski. For nearly 3 months, Nowak, Prochna, and Chowinski, immigrants from Poland, or respectively Poland, the UK, and Poland, cleaned asbestos from buildings adjacent to Ground Zero. The dust on some surfaces was 8 inches high. That is so poisonous. This is them. They're still doing the work. They're in their work gear, being heroes. I wanted to help, said Chowinski. Added Noack. The work made me feel like I'm part of history. On September 11th, Prochnow feared that a war had begun and more attacks were coming. I knew what had happened was a big problem, not only for the American people, but for everyone in the world. It's okay. I just dropped. Sorry. I dropped something. Oh my goodness. On my tea box. So this person right here, I think this was a very interesting story that he had. This is him, and this is his dog, his samurai dog, Salty. Omar Rivera, Senior Systems Designer, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. With one hand on the arm of his coworker, Donna Enright, and the other on the harness of his guide dog, Salty, Rivera descended 71 floors in Tower Number 1. Salty was nervous, but he was very concentrated on his duty. He and Donna were my angels that day. Many people saw what happened, but I heard it. The sounds of walls, cracking, pipes popping, people screaming. It still echoes in my ear. I think I read about this guy before. I want to say he was in the book September 11th in Oral History, but don't quote me on that. This guy, who's a television studio electrician, his name is Saeed Mustafa. Saeed? I don't know. I actually really like this picture. Like, I like this angle and the look on his face. He's just like I'm power. I got my light. I'm gonna let my light shine. Nobody can tell me I'm not an American. Like, I like that. I really like it. He says, an electrician knew me and said, Mustafa, grab your tool belt. I ran cable and set up movie lights for the search. My parents are Palestinian. Islam is not terrorism. I was in the U.S. Navy in the Gulf War. Now there was a war at home. It was my duty as a human being, an American, and a New Yorker to be there. I mentioned this last year where one of the things I remember were the attacks on Muslims after September 11th. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Islam. The only Muslims I had been exposed to were the Nation of Islam, like the Black Nation of Islam's Black Muslims. But I didn't know much about Islam. So I was very confused during that time. And I was worried about those who did practice Islam, worried for their safety and hoped that they would be okay. So that really opened up the talk about religion and stuff in America. So this one over here, let's see. This is a woman named Adrienne Walsh. She's a firefighter from Ladder 20. She said, or it says, to get to work after the attacks, Walsh ran to the Brooklyn Bridge from her apartment a few miles away, hitched a ride with Manhattan-bound fire truck, then ran to her Lafayette St. Firehouse to gather her gear. She arrived just before the second tower fell. She's one of the stories that I noticed in this book where people weren't even at the site, they were somewhere else and they ran. They ran to go help. Some of them were out of town and they got on the next plane back to town just so that they could be there. I love the seriousness and determination on her face. She said, the sky was gone. You couldn't see it because everything was so dark. but there was fire everywhere. We were trying to put out fires and were digging and digging. I never found a soul, never found evidence of anybody. It was just like people had just disappeared. I got into a void once, about 50 feet deep, and I'm looking around, but there was no sign of humanity. I'm thinking, there should be something here. All we found were a few postcards and a tiny stuffed bear. Pulverized. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to find some of the okay. This guy, Peter Reagan, he's a United States Marine. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton in California when the towers were hit, and his father, Donald, a New York City firefighter with Rescue 3, rushed to the scene. Peter flew east and joined in recovery efforts at Ground Zero, searching for his dad. He said if the roles were reversed, I know he would do the same thing. I just want something of his. I would prefer to bring something back. See? Look how young he is. Look at the youth in his face. Oh, I know he's an adult, but when I look at his face, all I see is a kid. So sad. There was one documentary I was watching. I don't know which one it was, but oh, I know. It was people who had survived 9/11 that were suffering. I believe they're like suffering from like medical issues related to it. And one of the people, I guess it was a woman, she told the story of a parent, or I don't know, it was a father or both parents, but he showed them some bones and he said, "This is my son," because that's literally all that people had left. They didn't have, you were lucky to get a full body, but most people didn't get a full body. You got parts of a body, if they even gave it to you, if you cremated it. It wasn't whole bodies, it was just parts of bodies because everything had been pulverized. Or there was no body there. All you had was something that stated that this was a person, like an ID or a piece of clothing or a piece of a watch. This is disturbing. Rebecca Canaleja, emergency room nurse, NYU Downtown Hospital. While many medical facilities throughout the city waited for large numbers of wounded who never arrived, NYU Downtown Hospital was inundated. The ER, which usually handles 60 people in a day, treated some 500 on that Tuesday. She said, "We didn't bother calling in extra staff. Everyone just came right in. Some had to show their IDs at police barricades to get back into Manhattan. It still makes me very sad, but I'm glad our tiny hospital was able to help so many." This is her. One overarching theme I noticed about this book is that people just went on their own. Some of them weren't even called in. They didn't wait for the call. They just went. Some of them were retired and they just were like, you know what, I'm not about to sit here and do nothing. And they went to either help clean or help with the scene or something, or offer counseling. Trying to go and find something. This guy said jury duty saved his life. Robert Schmuck, if that's how you pronounce his name. He was on jury duty the morning of the 11th. He was excused by the bailiff and went to ground zero. Of the 7 men from Engine 33 who responded to initial alarms, only the truck's driver survived. He said, jury duty saved my life. I should have been there. When I finally got there late that afternoon, it looked like it was 4 a.m. and snowing. The workers were covered in ash. You could hear the crackling of fires. It was a war zone. David Ebert, Warren P. Curry, Stephen Hoffman, Lieutenant Missing Persons Squad Captain, Special Investigations Division Sergeant, and Missing Persons Squad and Morgue Supervisor. Oh my God, they're like the angels of death. I'm not, no offense to y'all, but like, that's just what I thought when I was reading their titles. Shortly after after the attacks, but before both the buildings fell, the 3 responded to the World Trade Center site to help establish a temporary morgue. After September 11th, they worked with the New York City Medical Examiner's Office to identify victims and notify families. Shortly after the North Tower collapse, I was walking on St. Anne Street and was thinking it was all a dream, recalled Ebert. How many people had just lost their lives? A fireman was cursing about news he had heard on his radio that an entire company was missing. I couldn't believe we were so vulnerable. It's the 3 of them. This book, if a person didn't read this book all of the way through, they would have thought this book was just only firefighters, because there were so many firefighters that had their photographs taken. But they were very brave people. Very brave people. There was another, Danny Rice and Kevin McGarvey, detectives, 52nd Precinct. For nearly 6 months starting in September, Rice and McGarvey worked 12-hour shifts at the Fresh Kills landfill in Staten Island, searching through World Trade Center rubble for human remains and items that could help identify victims. And they said, "It was terrible. We didn't find anybody whole," revealed Rice, "mostly charred bones and flesh. I just remember thinking, how much hate is there in the world? We also found a lot of ID cards, driver's licenses, even just regular photos that must have come off of people's desks. We found golf balls. Oddly, a lot of golf balls." I just think of like golf balls. I associate those with wealth and prestige. I just like, okay, I'm done with my business meeting. Let's go play golf. Like, it was a wealthy person's sport, so I could see why they had golf balls. Oh my goodness. Evelyn Montanez, psychiatric social worker and American Red Cross volunteer. She spent several weeks counseling people at and near Ground Zero. This is what she said. It wasn't just the survivors and rescue workers needing help. There were a lot of immigrants and minorities working around those perimeters, cleaning the buildings and removing the asbestos. Those people weren't in Ground Zero digging out, but a lot of them had lived through a civil war in their countries, especially in South America. There was a lot of re-traumatization for them. They felt like, I left over there to have some security, and now here I am in the middle of this. This lady must meditate or something, because she looks so at peace. Like, she looks like she has a knowing. She knows how to talk to people. William Lewis and Tom Polanish, firefighters, ladder 134 and ladder 127. When a devastated firehouse holds a memorial, men from other houses cover for the bereaved unit. These Queens firefighters worked at ladder 20 in Soho, which lost 14 members. It's strange, I don't feel the impact from the scene down there. It doesn't seem real, said Polanish. What's all too real are the memorial services and reading the people's stories in the newspaper. That's what makes it sink in. Benny Holm, firefighter, Engine 9. Holm arrived at Ground Zero after both towers had fallen. You couldn't see well, but you could hear real well. Someone said to me, I think there's somebody right here hurt. 4 of us started digging and we saw an arm. We called on the walkie. We have Lieutenant Fuentes, but we don't know where we are. The fireboat radioed back. Listen for our horn and head to the water. We made it to the water. Things were really crazy. People in shock walking in circles. There was a firefighter walking around holding a leg. I told him to sit down, but he kept saying, no, but I got a leg. We heard guys on the walkie saying, come get us. We'd hear someone else say, I'm hurt, please help me. Then nothing. When our guys got out, all of them sat in a huddle, crying like children. Then these dudes were not there, but they were heroes. Tim Mullally and Tom Norden. Mullally owns a John Deere dealership in Jefferson, New York. Norden is his brother-in-law, a Manhattan resident. Mullally asked John Deere to donate their Gator utility vehicle to the rescue efforts. The company sent 46 of them to Ground Zero. We gave them to anyone who needed one, said Mullally. When people saw what they could do, they became pretty popular. We were driving up and down stairs and over sharp objects. I just feel lucky we were able to do something to help. See, you don't have to have elaborate things to be a hero. It could just be like a donation. It could be giving your time. So this dude is a pastor. His name is the Reverend Dr. Calvin O. Butts III. Ooh, that's a long name. Okay. Pastor, Abyssinian Baptist Church, New York City. The Reverend is on the board of the September 11th Fund. On the Sunday after the attacks, he delivered a sermon urging Americans not to live in fear. I thought his speech was very patriotic, even though I'm really not patriotic at all. But it sounds, like something a pastor would say, very pastorly. And that's why I wanted to read it to you. Never before in some of our lifetimes has tragedy visited our shores. But thanks be to God that we have a country, that even though we've come face to face with terror, we are still able to pull together and thank God for beautiful skies and amber waves of grain. Thank God for our liberties that we enjoy. thank God for our Constitution and the resolve of all Americans to pull together for the sake of our nation. This man, Archbishop Demetrios, Archbishop of America Greek Orthodox Church. I like this picture because it's just intense. Like, I feel like this man is staring into my soul, and I just want to repent. Like, I'm like, I'll repent, I promise. Like, just stop staring into my soul. Among the buildings destroyed was St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church. He said, in the terrorist attacks, we have seen the abyss, the ugliness and darkness of evil. In what followed, we have seen the immensity, beauty, and brilliance of good. St. Nicholas will be rebuilt on the exact same location, but it will be much more than a small parish church. It will be a shrine, a monument of remembrance, a consecration of the sacredness of life, a place of reflection and peace for anyone of any faith or no faith. That's intense. This is him. Hello. I don't know who's on his... Oh, I think that is Jesus. With a painting. Then it says, Christopher Pepe and David Kravitz, salesman and managing director, Cantor Fitzgerald. And if you don't know who Cantor Fitzgerald is, they were in one of the towers, and they lost so many people. They lost so many people. They were called from their offices just before the attacks. The guy said he had to see me, so I left Tower 1 at around 8:20 to go to Broad Street. That call saved my life, said Pepe. Or Peep. I don't know if it's Pepe or Peep. Said Kravitz, my assistant was 7 months pregnant, so I offered to go down and meet our guests. I was in the lobby when it hit. No one from Cantor Fitzgerald came down. Look, I cannot imagine losing my coworkers. I just can't. I've already lost 2 coworkers. One, they say he committed suicide, but I don't know. And then the other, he just died of, illness. But those are the only 2 coworkers I lost. And it was spaced out between time. But I cannot imagine just like all of my coworkers gone. And me, I don't have that many coworkers. I literally have 3 or 4 coworkers, and that's it. But at the library, I have more. So I just can't imagine like everybody gone. It wouldn't register in my mind. So there's another one, and I'm looking for it. Joanne Gross, sister of the late Tommy Foley, Rescue 3. She waited as her husband K.C., a Mount Vernon, New York firefighter, went on the 11th to find both Tommy and Danny. So they found Danny. He found Danny. They called me and said Tommy was missing. I said, no, he's helping. They went every day to search for him. Every morning it was like sending them off to war. This is his cowboy hat. He loved it. Loved rodeos. Tommy lived life. Oh my God. And this is one of the few where like they're crying. Is she crying? It's her brother. And she looks really pretty in this photograph. And you can see a single tear coming down. No, she has tears from both eyes. Very intense. And then this is her other brother. This is the one they found, Danny. They found him. He said, first day I searched 36 hours. I had a hard time. calling home. When I spoke to my father, I promised him one way or another I'd find Tommy and bring him home. Now this lady saved a bunch of firefighters without trying to save a bunch of firefighters. Her name's Josephine Harris. She's a bookkeeper, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And she's holding up a jacket that says Josephine, our guardian angel, Chinatown Dragon Firefighters Ladder 5. And this is her. Josephine. It's her jacket. Harris got to her 73rd floor office in One World Trade at 8:30. After Flight 11 hit the building, she started down Stairway B. By the 20th floor, she was exhausted. 6 firefighters from Ladder 6 found her and urged her to keep going. They were near the 4th floor when the building went down. Had they been going a little faster, they would have been crushed in the lobby. Had they been slower, they would have been killed by the collapsing floors. So this lady was like their divine intervention. This lady had them right on time. She said, "All I wanted to do was to get to the lobby. I had no idea it wasn't there." Stone Phillips of NBC said, "You walked down 70 flights of stairs and had 104 floors fall on top of you, and you still survived. It amazes me." Like, wow. The grace of God. And these are some of the firefighters that I guess were with Josephine. Wait, was it? Yeah, one of the firefighters trapped. It's him. Right place at the right time. This is another one that was trapped with Josephine. I'm so glad they got out. Let's see. Let me see. This is Lisa Beamer. Her husband, Todd Beamer, was on United Flight 93, which crashed in rural Pennsylvania. And she wrote a book called Let's Roll after this book was published. Or after this photography shoot, she wrote a book. Or started writing one. Todd called a GTE airphone operator and told her of a planned revolt against the hijackers. "Are you ready? Are you guys ready?" she heard. Beamer asked fellow passengers. "Let's roll." The operator heard screams and a scuffle, then the line went dead. September 11th was a day of tragedy, but we saw despair turn into hope as Americans rose up to display feats of faith, character, and courage. Let's continue in their footsteps. And then there's a page talking about in the studio, and she's in there too, Lisa Beamer. Lisa Beamer, the widow of Todd Beamer, who helped lead the charge against terrorists on Flight 93, was in the studio for about 45 minutes. She recalls that the man behind me was the one who was on the cover of Fortune. I noticed that he had his suit clean. Beamer says that everyone working at the studio was very nice, very compassionate. I think Joe McNally had a real passion for his subjects and for conveying who they are to the world. I am honored to be among that company of people. Of course, I didn't do anything to be there, but when I read their stories, I think they're heroes. My little kids are very young, and they think police officers and firefighters are cool. But it's important for older kids and even for grown-ups to realize that police and firemen really are something to be emulated. The next person Michael Lomonaco, and he was over on Windows of the World. So, known to many as a host of TV cooking shows, was the executive chief at Windows on the World, a restaurant that was perched atop Tower Number 1 of the World Trade Center. He says that days following September 11th were so full and fraught, I almost didn't get involved with any project or with the project. Then it came to me that this is important for the record, for having an accurate record. So this is him looking at his photo. He lost a lot of people, like a lot of his employees. And the reason that he was spared was because he had to go get glasses. Okay, I'll read his story, then I'll read the one next to it. Michael Lomonaco, executive chef, Windows on the World, One World Trade. Lomonaco, normally in the kitchen on the 106th floor by 8:15 a.m., stopped in the building's subterranean mall on the morning of September 11th to buy this pair of glasses. His restaurant lost 79 employees. In the aftermath, Lomonaco prepared meals for rescue workers and set up a foundation for the families of missing food service workers. He said, 5 minutes more and I would have been in the elevator. You develop a feeling of family in the restaurant business because of the long days and nights. Losing those members of my restaurant family has been devastating. 79 people. This guy right here, the reason I'm going to read about him is like, he said something that piqued my interest. Jason Cascone, or Cascone, I don't know, firefighter ladder 9. Cascone finished his training on September 10th, 2001. The next morning, his mother woke him and said there was a fire at the World Trade Center. He remembers being transported to his first assignment with 50 other firefighters. He said there was a chaplain on the bus and he was giving absolution to everyone. Was that Father Judge? I don't know. Every time I hear about like a chaplain or a priest, that's who I think of as Father Judge. I wonder if somebody wrote a book on him. So, let's see, who else? This one is really sad. Elizabeth McGovern and Terry McGovern, daughters of Anne McGovern, a claims analyst at Aon, who was killed. Terry is the mother of infant Liam. Elizabeth was working at Merrill Lynch in the World Financial Center on September 11th and walked down 40 flights to safety. Anne worked on the 93rd floor of Tower 2 and was last seen waiting for the elevator. And Terry says, she was on the 72nd floor. There was a line. The group ahead of her made it out. I hope she was killed instantly when the second plane hit. My mom was quite a character. She loved golf and she loved Liam. Now she's cheated out of being part of his life. So this is baby Liam and his mom and aunt. And this is I guess when he was like born, and his grandma. So sad. Now Liam is like 22 or 23. Probably 22. This guy, the window washer, saved people from they were trapped in an elevator. Jan Demsker, window washer. When the plane struck Tower Number 1, Demsker and 5 others became trapped in an elevator 50 floors up. He pried open the door with his squeegee. Faced with a wall of plasterboard, he went at it with the metal blade of his wiper. All of the trapped took turns and finally made a 12 by 18-inch hole. They crawled out. Astonishing firefighters. The escape took 95 minutes. And this is his quote. I can't talk about it. Which is you. I couldn't talk about it either. If you've ever been trapped in an elevator, it is so scary. I was trapped in an elevator as a child. That's why I have a fear of elevators. And it's very claustrophobic. But just imagine you're trapped in an elevator in a building that a plane has hit. That's even 10 times scarier. Or a million times scarier. But this is him. I still see his pain in his face. All of these different close calls. This dude was a high school student and he took a photograph of his friends looking at the tower collapse. Like, wow. I hope he became a photographer because that is some excellent work. You got canine units. You got Mayor Giuliani. This dude would have been crushed by debris if he hadn't gone to go get his coworker, which was her. This is the car. This is the car. That he would have been in that car. Miller received a call to meet Mendel at the World Trade Center. He got out of his car to look for her. 3 minutes later, it was crushed by falling debris. He said, after that, I was covered in soot from head to toe. I started walking uptown and about 15 minutes later ran into Sunny and the mayor. I embraced her. I was so happy to see her and she was happy to see me. And Sunny Mendel is the communications director for Mayor Giuliani, or former Mayor Giuliani. Looking for her saved his life. There's a woman, Paulette Floyd. She's a mental health worker. That's her. She was a social worker and a Red Cross volunteer. She said, I wanted to be there to help the victims and the workers and the volunteers to express what they were feeling, rather than cleaning it up into what they should be feeling. At some point, everyone needs someone to talk to. That is true. Hold on, I'm looking for more stories. This is the man she was talking about on the Fortune magazine. Ed Fine, business and financial consultant. Fine evacuated from the 78th floor of Tower Number 1 and was a block away when Tower 2 collapsed. He said, I started running, but the cloud was coming too fast. I lay face down in the street and heard a priest praying next to me. The smoke and ash were so thick, I thought I would suffocate. After 5 minutes, it was clear enough to walk. That's when the photo was taken. I had no idea. So this is him in his clean suit, and this is him in the Fortune photograph. This dude from the Daily News is a photographer. He took a photo of an airplane tearing into World Trade Center 2. When the tower collapsed, he was buried in rubble. He suffered knee damage and a badly fractured leg. He said, I was saved by a team of guardian angels that included NYPD officers, paramedics, and firefighters from Engine 217 and Ladder 131. Words can't express my gratitude. I feel like I won the lottery on September 11th, but the prize was my life. And you know what else was a prize? Like, you really captured a moment in history. Like, look at this photograph. That is so intense. I hope his leg became better. Poor dude. I just I had to stop reading some of the stories because it was just like getting overwhelming. This guy suffered from 40% of burns all over his body, but he goes around doing speaking. His name is Manu Dhingra. That's how you pronounce it. This little girl is glad to see her daddy back. They look just alike too, but look at the joy in her face. Yes, you look just like her daddy. I see you, girl. You got your daddy. You got your daddy back. Or if that's her, I'm assuming it's her daddy. This is the person that took the photograph of the firefighters raising the flag. Tom Franklin, staff photographer, the Bergen Record. Ground Zero was evacuated that Tuesday afternoon before the collapse of 7 World Trade. When Franklin made his way back, he saw firefighters raising Old Glory. It was an unceremonious and fast. The atmosphere was so serious that no one paid attention to what others were doing. I knew right away that I had a great image of hope, bravery, and patriotism, like the photographs of the Marines raising the flag on Iwo Jima. This is him. This is his photo, which you've probably seen. There was somebody else in here. I feel like I'm missing someone, but I don't know who. There was somebody in here, but I just don't know who it was. So many stories, though. Finally, the last one is Katrina Marino, wife of missing firefighter Kenneth Marino of Rescue 1, pictured with daughter Kristen 3 and son Tyler 1. 11 firefighters from Rescue 1 responded to alarms. None returned. She said Kenny was listed as injured and I was very hopeful, but later they said it was a mistake. I try not to get upset in front of the kids. I need to be there for them. My daughter has been my inspiration. It came to the point where I had to tell her daddy's in heaven. She said, "Don't worry, Mommy. You've got me and Tyler." So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the photographs. I hope that you'll always remember September 11th and take it as a lesson just to be better people, to promote a world that's full of peace instead of war and unnecessary violence. If you have a hero in your life, thank the hero. There's so many people that are heroes, but they don't realize they're heroes. And if you see one, they don't have to be like grandiose. They don't have to be like a doctor or a firefighter. They could even be a teacher. They could be somebody that makes sure your needs are getting met, a stalker at a grocery store. All these small, subtle heroes doing the job that others are either afraid to do or just don't want to do. I take my time out to say thank you to all of them. So that's all I have to say for this year. I will do my September 11th memorial video book review next year, which will be our 3rd anniversary. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Talk to you later, and happy reading.